Hello, welcome to another RETS Pro video. This video is going to cover mapping RETS data using our RETS module. And before we get started on that, I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about your server settings, your hosting settings. And it's very important to make sure that you've got your PHP INI up to snuff. Otherwise, this is just not going to work for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to go jump over to the forums. We're going to click on server hosting requirements and click on the thread link here. And what you're going to see here is basically this is what's required. All right, so if you can get the memory limit, max input vars, max execution time, input time, and upload max file size to these settings, you should have no problems, other than possibly a my.cnf file, which is your MySQL database settings, similar to this is the PHP INI settings for your PHP. All right, if you don't know anything about this stuff, this is over your head. If you don't get it, definitely want to come over here and read the rest of the thread, ask some questions, some pre-sale questions. We want you to make sure that you understand this. If you don't understand this, then we're happy to help you, walk you through this with your hosting provider. But your hosting provider, if you cannot do your own local PHP INI file, then your hosting provider is going to have to set this up for you and bump these settings up. All right, so we're going to assume that you've got all this taken care of. I'm not going to get long-winded into that because most of the developers that buy our software already got it. Okay, so, well, the plugin. First of all, you can log in here, click on the link to pop open the plugin. You've already been doing this, and so you already understand this, and you already understand that you can open it in a full admin panel by clicking on this link right here. Okay, so by doing so, you've got the full screen, and it makes it so much easier for doing the mapping. And we're going to go ahead and click on the Maps module right here, get started right away. And the first thing I want to talk about are these 4 tabs. If we refer to instructions, if you do written documentation instructions or the README file or anything, you're going to hear us say, tab 1, tab 2. So we would say something like tab 1, hit save, hit next step. Tab 2, hit save, hit next step. So that's the reference to the tabs that we're talking about up here. Starting off with the United States button drop down here. If you are anywhere in the United States and in Canada, and you are any customer other than a Canadian Real Estate Association CREA RETS data feed or a Toronto TREB RETS data feed, then you are always going to leave it on United States. Even though you're in Canada, basically this should say standard RETS and non-compliant RETS is what we should change this to be, and we probably will in the near future, which I will have to redo this video. So anyway, so that's enough about that. 99% of everybody is United States version, which again, standard RETS version. Next thing we're going to talk about is the 3 things that you should have received from your RETS provider: a URL, a username, and a password. They may have given you a user agent, they may not have. If they did, copy and paste it in here. This one has a user agent, it has been copied and pasted in here. Typically we have a placeholder in here. It cannot be left empty. Anyway, not to get too confusing, if they give you all the criteria, put it in. If they give you 3 of these pieces, that's all you need. That's the simple explanation. I want to point out one thing that's brought to my attention by this URL here. I see a 6103. Now that represents the port, the TCP port, Tom, Charlie, Paul port, okay, TCP. So you need to have your hosting provider open up 6103. If this is something you have in your URL where you have 6103 or 8080 in your URL, then those TCP ports corresponding to those two numbers would need to be open. Those are the only two ports that ever need to be open to connect to all RETS in North America. Most of them do not require that, but this one does. So that's something I want to point out. If you click on this, you get a red error, and you've already verified there's no empty spaces, no typos. Most likely your problem is 6103. You can go to RETS MD, that's RETS MD, like medicaldoctor.com, and test your credentials there as well. If they connect there but not on yours, it's because your port is not opened up. HostGator, Bluehost, everybody seems to have no problem opening the port. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is explain the RETS versions here. You can leave it on default 1.5. Rarely ever does it need to be changed to anything else. Even if they are running 1.72, 1.8, everything will work on 1.5 in 98% of all cases. There are a couple that it is required that you do have to match that up. And you would know that when you got there, because when you get to this third tab, you wouldn't get the options that you are going to get in this video. It would be like, you know, nothing or one maybe. And so if that's the case, then yeah, you do need to match that up. But that's so rare that it ever happens. It's, you know, 98%, 99% of the time never going to happen for you. Compact decoded, again, this is probably 99% of the time never going to change this. Always leave it like this. I can't even think of the last time I saw a RETS provider that had compact. Offset support. This is about an 80% chance that your RETS provider will have offset support. So what you want to do is leave this to, or switch this from no to yes, like I've already set it up here. And a good place to start is around 3,000. If it fails at 3,000, then you're going to jump this down to 2,000. Most of the RETS providers are doing between 2,000 and 5,000 in a batch. I don't know of any that are doing more than 5,000 off the top of my head. So 3,000 is a good place to start. If you are, when we get over here to the fourth tab and we run this, we get an error, then we would come back over here and switch this to no, okay? So it would be a big red error across the screen saying, it would say offset support not supported, big red error. And you just come switch this to no and then rerun the cycle, which I'll follow through on that at the end of the video. So for now, you should be able to get your credentials in, hit save. Get a blue bar, you're good to go. Now we're on the second tab, and starting at the top, I just want to explain this drop down right here. The full data and full photo download is a setting that you're going to use when you are working on your project. Anytime you're in here and you're going to have to dump the database, rerun the database from scratch, do some testing, do some working, you know, make sure you're all, you know, got everything the way you want it, and you're going to be dumping the data many times during the day or whatever. You're going to, or if it's just a one-time purge, full data dump is what this is. It's going to dump everything and load everything from scratch. Synchronize is just about never used. It's only used if you had a lot of images downloaded and all your data and you didn't want to dump everything, and you just realize that the board has just added a brand new field that you just must have, and you wanted to add that field without dumping everything. That's what you would use this field for. So you're probably 1% if you use that. The last field, incremental. If you are 100% done with your mapping, everything is done, and you're walking away from your project now, you've like, you know, done, got other things to do, let this be your setting. This is what you need to come back here and set this to. If you don't, then when your cron jobs are running from the cron job, then what ends up happening is that this thing is going to dump the data every time and try to reload the images, and you're going to end up being without all your data for a period of minutes or hours or whatever it takes. All right, enough about that. So we are going to leave it on full download. Physical photo support. Well, the simple answer is 99% of you will not download images. I will set the images up for you. It's not at a cost to you. It's 100% free. You just need me to do that for you, or you can watch the video for you know, doing the same thing that I would be doing. It's a hot linking image video, and that if you can follow that and make it work, great. If you get stuck, need my help, I'll just open up a support ticket. But in this video, we are going to download photos just to show those people that want to download photos the ability to, how to do it. All right, so what you do here, when you first get into this screen, it's going to look like this. And so you're going to go ahead and say, yeah, I'm going to download some photos. And while I got this open, I'll go ahead and explain these others. If you are doing California RETS, what we call carets, or they call it carrots, that would be the only time that you probably would use this option right here. There's another couple of them in California that I found that I could use this for, but just about everybody else you cannot use these for. It's either physical download or hot linking off the media server. Okay, so the next thing is physical download path. This is the default path. You don't have to use the default path. You can change it. Change it to whatever path you want. Whatever path you choose here is where the photos will go. I set the defaults to 0, but I set it to 99. Even if you are going to download images and your board says, hey, we only give you 20 images, go ahead and set it to 99. And the reason for that is because if they decide in the future to up it from 20 to 50, you don't need to touch this. It automatically will start downloading them. All right, so that's really it. It's not a lot on this. All the yellow captions here will explain everything in detail as a reminder. Okay, now this is where we finally get to do the mapping. First thing we want to talk about, agents and the office. You are probably 90% of the time never going to touch these. And if you have to have these done, you need to open up a support ticket, or I do have a video, I think it's actually about a 15-minute video, but that is a whole nother explanation and a whole nother conversation. It's never used in 90% of them. The reason that you don't use those is because the office and agent information is going to be located down here in each of these property classes. So if I open any of these property classes here in this window, you're going to see agent name, office name, phone numbers, email, everything basically that's up in here is going to be down in here in each of these property classes. Okay, and so there's no purpose in touching these when that occurs. So you'll just ignore those. All right, so the next thing is we're going to go ahead and explain the property classes. These are property classes. There are actually 4 property classes in this particular RETS. This last one is a trend that's just started happening about a year, maybe a year and a half ago. I started noticing this in quite a few of them. They started adding the all. And so the reason that if you want to do just one of these property classes, it makes sense just to do one of these property classes individually so that your database is much smaller, it'll be faster, and you're not dealing with leads on properties that you have no intentions of really wanting to run or deal with. So if your customer says, hey, I want all of them, great. You just click this, and this is going to be a much longer list when you open this one up because it's going to contain all of the fields, the extra fields. None of the redundant fields. All the redundant. That's the beauty of this is the redundant fields will be missing. So you won't have to do bedrooms and bathrooms 3 times or possibly 4 times because sometimes lots can also be farms and whatever in the land, and they also put the bedrooms and bathrooms in that one. And of course, multifamily is apartments and duplexes, and commercial leases also have bathrooms and commercial bed and breakfast. So you could really cut down a lot of redundant fields if you have the opportunity to do an all. Okay, so I just want to point that out. That's a good explanation and an overview of this. Next thing I want to talk about is if you click on these and you just say, okay, so I'm going to do all these, or I'm going to do 3 of these. When you click on these, it's going to really expand the page way down. And you're going to be going, oh man, I don't really want to have to go over here on this scroll bar and scroll a half a mile down the page just to get to the next property class each time I hit the save button. Okay, well the problem with that is that if you say you, for example, you opened up this multifamily and you mapped everything in here, and now you're like, okay, I'm tired of scrolling down all of this just to get down to the next one each time. And you go ahead and you say, I'm going to close this one out up here by unchecking it so that I can work on this one now. And if you go and do that, and you go down here and you hit the save button, then what happens is you have basically told the system that you no longer want these property classes mapped anymore. Unchecking means unmapping. And that is a hard, cold fact that a lot of people learn the hard way, is they map all this out and they uncheck this because they want to skip down to the lower sections without scrolling past it again and again. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. You do have to open each one and scroll to the bottom. This is a one-time thing that you spend anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, and when you're done, you're done. And you probably only have to come back in here a couple more times over the next year just to make a tweak or two. But other than that, that is the main point. You do not want to uncheck one of these up here just to scroll past it and then hit the save button, or you'll lose everything. Make sure that they are all completely expanded. Like right here, I got the reload. You can reload this config file. If I click save right now, then while that's reloading, then I possibly will corrupt this as well. So that's something else I want to make sure that you guys understand, is that whenever you see this, do not hit the save button, because this is, you could corrupt the save would be saying, hey, I didn't finish loading all of these fields that you've mapped, and it truncates part of them off, and then you will have a corrupt data here, a corrupt mapping. So that's the important do not do's. Okay, so do not do those, and you will be happy with your mapping process here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump up to the top of this residential that I've already started on, trying to speed this process of this video up. And we're going to start at the top section here. There is what we refer to as the top yellow section. And why we call it the yellow section is because there is yellow instructions in this section here. And it is the settings. It's where you set all the settings for each property class. And so I refer to it as the top yellow section. What we start with, this top requirement says that you have to select an owner, listing owner. And a lot of people think that, oh my God, I got to go and do something here. It can't be me. It can't be the admin. It's got to be so-and-so. No, it doesn't. It can be anybody. It makes absolutely zero difference. It has zero importance. The only thing that is required is that we had to select something to send into the RETS server to make the handshake. That's why it's a requirement. So anybody, it doesn't matter. None of these listings are going to be attributed to that person. The property class. Well, if I was to do the property all class, then it really wouldn't matter because we don't have one called property all. And since this one's residential, which means it includes condominiums, townhomes, homes, everything, I'm just going to select homes because it really doesn't matter. I just need to select something that's relevant. And typically, if some of them do homes, condos separately, but if it's residential, select homes. And don't worry about the property type because we're going to be selecting that down below. All right, so the listing title. Listing title is always going to be the address. That's the way I map every one of them, is the street address only. I don't do, you guys can do whatever you want, but this is the way I do it. It allows you to go ahead and select if there is a actual address. I start at the top looking for alphabetically address. I don't see it, then I go down to the L's and I look for listing or list address or something like that. I don't find it. I go down to the P. I look for property address or prop address. I don't find it. Last thing I check is some of them do full address, and that is actually what this one did. And it's rare that you'll ever see one called full address. But when I couldn't find the address, this is what I did. I'm going, this is a lot of scrolling and looking, takes a lot of time. Just hit the Control F on your keyboard, type in address, and you're going to see that there are 10 addresses. Hit the button, go down the page. Oh, looky, we have one called full street address. That would be what I want to use. So I go back up here and I would select full street address right there, and I would delete anything else that I had, and that's what I would use. Now, if full street address did not exist, if you did not have an address, a street address, and you had to start from scratch, well, what you would do in that case is you would start with the S's, go down and look for street, and you always start with street number. And what we're going to do is we're going to concatenate our own street address together here. So we're going to start with a street number, and then the next one would be street prefix direction, or street prefix, street prefix direction, or street prefix, or direction prefix, or something like that. This particular one doesn't have it. They just actually put the street prefix as part of the street name, which is fine. Then the next thing would be doing street, I think they got street suffix, and then they got street suffix direction. So they would have 4 of them. And so that's what that would be. So you would actually join all 4 of them together, and you'd have your street address reading left to right. So so I'm going to go ahead and use that full, because when I get done with this, I want you to be able to see it the right way. There we go. Okay, so choose unique key field. Listing key. I would actually tell you that SysID and unique ID are the most common 2 that you would ever find. And it's really not important if you're hot linking. This can be just the listing ID, MLS number. Every single time can be the MLS number if you're hot linking. You can ignore the unique stuff if you're hot linking. But if you are downloading, you have to match it up. It is a mystery between this one right here and this one right here, the select listing ID. This one right here has to be, sometimes we have to go play a merry-go-round with a trial and error. We have to change this from listing MLS number, maybe this is the unique key, back and forth. Downloading is a pain, and figuring out what the RETS provider is wanting us to do is like opening up a combination. I'll probably, in a playlist, I'll go ahead and make a video on how to troubleshoot that, because that is a unique 5-minute video that it would take me at least 5 minutes to articulate it. All right, so this particular one uses the listing key instead of unique key or SysID or MLS number. So we're going to use that. Choose query field. Always is going to be status. No matter what your RETS provider has, it's either going to be L_status, L status, listing status, just status, or even property status. So I've seen that, but mostly it's always listing status or L_status or status. You're always going to select status, and you're always only going to select active until you have completed your project. After you have completed all of your project, all of your mapping, then you're going to come back in here and explore the other opportunities of possibly there's sometimes sold data. Maybe you get it, maybe you don't. Do not map anything else until you have finished the rest of the project. You can shoot yourself in the foot so early on and get so frustrated because you are clicking everything that you should not be clicking at this point. So what you want to do is stay minimal and to get through this process. So only select active, nothing else until you're completely done, and then come explore with the other options. The same thing for down here. This is a choose optional field. You could select county, and all the counties would be listed down here in a drop down, a big box similar to this. It would show up if you select county. Region, area, zip codes. You can do all kinds of things as a filter and add additional filters so that you're not pulling data from other places that you don't want to service. Again, this right here, take the minimalist approach. Do not check anything other than find one that is a modified timestamp, and that's the one you want to click. Do not check anything else until later. Now, when you are done, the final process is, yes, you definitely come back through here and look for some other things such as the following, and only the following: price and photo. If you're downloading photos, then yes, you want to know when the last photo was modified, if there is a photo option in here. If there is a price option in here, then I would do the price. Go ahead and check the price. A lot of this is just going to shoot yourself in the foot again, because you're going to check boxes and it's going to throw errors because they say, no, you're not authorized to view that information. Okay, so just to stay out of the weeds, price, photos, and modified timestamp. Those are the only three. Modified timestamp is the only one I would start with. Listing ID is always your MLS number. Listing, it'll be list ML num. I've seen that. Listing MLS. So you just got to figure out what it is the listing number, the MLS number. This one would always be listing MLS number again, but for this video I'm making a demo of showing how to download the images, and this actually is required to match listing key as we have set up here right there. But when I started this my very first time around, I did listing ID, listing ID. When I could not get the images to come down, I came over here and I switched this to listing key to match the top, and then it worked. Okay, so that's an explanation of, like I said, that 5-minute other video. Total photos. Most of the time this is called photo count, but I have seen it as crazy as a capital letter I and a pound sign. So you never know what your photo image count will be. And there is only one RETS provider in all of North America that does not give you an image count, and that is Toronto. Everybody else will give you a photo count. All right. Oh, and we have a Hotlink solution for Toronto as well. So, all right. So the choose photo type. So some of them give you all of these options. Some of them don't. This RETS provider happens to give you 5 options here, which is quite amazing. Most of them only give you 1 or 2. Zip code field, probably only used 5% of the time. If you're in Atlanta, Georgia, you got to use it. If you're in a couple other places, you might need to use it. And it's only because offset is not supported. And for whatever reason, there's one in Florida, just thinking of as well, that we have to use this as well, but it's rare. And so for 90+% of you, just don't ever touch this. Just leave this alone unless you're in Atlanta or having problems. And if you're having problems, you'd have to open up a support ticket, and I'll help you out with that. All right, so the show hide, what is this right here? What is this all about on these columns? Well, we already have the ability to just basically throw things into the trash. And I've already gone down here and I hit a couple things, but here's one right here. Alternate agent cell phone. We know that's trash. We're going to go ahead and check that. And when you check that, like alternate agent designations, this is not public information. So we're going to go ahead, we hit a couple of them. Where did they go? Well, they went over here into the hide, and there they are. So if you wanted to send it back over there because you accidentally hid something, you just uncheck it. And as soon as you uncheck something, it goes back to the other side. Okay, so let's go back to the other side. Okay, so the very first thing that you have to map, you're going to look down this, and this whole left-hand column is all the available RETS data fields available from your RETS provider. This is where they all are, all right? And so you basically decide whether they're going to be something you want or something you don't want. And if it's something you know that you don't want, immediately just click it and trash it. If it's something that eventually you do think that you may or may not want, but you haven't made up your mind that, just leave it. you know, it's not hurting anything. It's just a pain that you get tired of scrolling past all of this stuff over and over again. So, I'm going to go here and find something to map, and I'm going to find the fields that have to be mapped in order to get a successful save and give you an explanation. When we go back to the top of the yellow section, there are some drop downs that have an asterisk. So as you see here, we have a listing key, a listing status. Get down here, and we have the listing ID, and we have the listing key again. So there's 3 different ones, and total photos, which actually is not over here. We took this off as a requirement, but you won't be able to get your images done if you don't map this. We had to take it off because of a couple REST providers. We used to make it a requirement, but you definitely want to go ahead and get this map down below as a requirement for yourself. And that's it. So we have 4 total. So we know that we're going to start with the L's, get down here to the L's, and you're going to see, whoops, you're going to see I've already got these. I've got the listing ID. And so when I mapped this, all I did was click on this and said, okay, we need the MLS number, which was up here. It started off like this, and I went, okay, I went to MLS number and hit select because it was a pre-existing field. Now, listing office name, I did that a while ago, just messing with this. Listing key, same thing. So listing key was a new field, so when it popped up, it was a field that did not exist, and I went down here and I just hit the create button because it's not a field that I'm going to show to the public. It's just a field that I got to map to be able to make the system run. So whatever it has, I just went ahead and hit the create button, and it added it, as you can see already here. Okay, so that's a little bit about that. I mapped my 4 property fields that I had to have, and I mapped a few extra fields. And I'm going to go ahead and map another field while I'm in here and show you how to do a listing agent name. Okay, so what we want to do is, in this video, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to map 2 fields. I'm going to map this as a new field, this listing agent email. And we're just going to go ahead and map this one. Does not exist yet. And if I just click this button, then it's mapped. It's just that easy. But maybe I want to explain this to you so that you understand that this is what is actually going to be displayed on the website. This is what's actually in the database. So if you look at a MySQL database, all the rows horizontally are listings, and all of the columns are tables, fields, and that is a table field. That is a column field called listing agent, and so down the column, if there was an agent email, boom, it would show up in that. So this is just mapping it, and that field is mapped. I'm going to go ahead and do this lease term right here. This is a good one to do. A brand new field, just to give you an example. You see, you want to make sure that you got your spacing right here, but if you were to work with the RETS right now and it had something like this with this and maybe something like that or whatever, if it had all that stuff down here, then what you want to do is you want to copy that, the whole thing, copy the whole thing, go up to the top, paste it up here, and you want to take out any spaces, any characters, and you want to clean that up just like that. And now that's what's going to be in the database in the top of the column. It's exactly a representation of what your field name is, so that you know when you go look up something in the database, these are very similar. You know what you're working with. And so whatever is down here, you strip it out, put it up here with no spaces and no characters, and then you can hit the create button, and as you can see, that's what's going to be shown on the front of the website, but we know what the database is going to look like. All right, so that's a little bit about how to map fields. It's just a rinse and repeat. You have to get all these basic top section, these 4 that are up here. These must be mapped that I was talking about a while ago down here before you'll end up getting a successful save and the ability to run your cron job. And so I'm going to show you what a successful save and a non-successful save looks like. This is a successful save. It is a single sentence, okay? Now, if I go up here and I forgot to check something, maybe I forgot to check anything at all, and I go down there and hit the save button, it's going to tell me an error, and I'm going to show you that error because I'm going to actually also show you what happens if you do not map one of the required drop-down fields that was up there. Let's see, it's going to be listing key. I'm going to go ahead and do that listing key. So I'm going to unmap the listing key, and this is also an example of how do you unmap a field. I don't want the field anymore. You just simply go right here and you unmap it. Now, unmapping it does not remove it out of the database. It just means that I'm not going to be downloading it anymore. So now let me hit the save button, and you're going to see that I'm going to get this little error message. No setting is saved for below listed resource and class as one or more required field is not selected. Mapped property is Miris Resi. So it's telling you that the residential property class is the property class that is containing the error. If you had all these other property classes, it would tell you, it would say, like it said in the error, that the res was the one that's got the problem. So I'm going to go back down here and I'm going to go ahead and fix that problem. And because you cannot run the database until you have resolved that problem. Okay, so we're mapping a field again that's already been mapped. So we go right back here. So if a field has already been mapped, you've already mapped a field one time, you're going to see it's automatically going to be here. So if you're in another property class and you're mapping redundant fields, you're just going to use option 1 every time. But if it's a field that you go to map and you go, okay, oh, well, where is it? It's not here. Then you're just going to slide this thing up and you're going to map it with option 3. If you screw something up, so let's just say I screwed up this lease term here. I didn't like the fact that it had a question mark and I want to change it, then you change it to whatever you want and you're going to replace that field. That's very important if you want to change something that you messed up. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, I do have to use this listing key before I finish this, is I do not want anybody to ever delete or overwrite any of these lowercase underscores. There's going to be a handful of these lowercase underscores. They are required. If you see a lowercase with an underscore pre-existing, they're going to be required. They cannot be overwritten or deleted. I have no way to hide them from you from here. So, all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select that listing key, and we're going to get a successful save this time. Done. We're going to go to the next step and the final part of this video. All right, there are 2 halves to this page. There's the top half that's separated by this line and the bottom half separated by this line. If you are troubleshooting and you need to troubleshoot a single property, like if we'd have mapped all 4 property classes, all 4 property classes would be here just like this one is here. We would individually be able to check each one and do whatever we wanted to do using these options here. This is really handy to incrementally get data in or singularly test a single property class against whatever you're trying to do. That is very handy for big databases, like when you're handling Canadian Real Estate Association with over 100,000 listings in it, and you want to single out a single property class and do a little troubleshooting. It makes it very handy. So does this tool down here. Pretend that we have all these property classes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just say we have 5 property classes up here. And I want to come over here, and I know that there's going to be 50,000 listings, but I don't want to wait for 50,000 just to do a test, you can come in here and do a pre-limit. And if you hit the run now with, say, 10 listings in here, and there are 5 property classes here, you would end up with a total of 50 listings. 10 from each property class would be downloaded. Since we only have one property class, we're going to just put 10 in here. I know there are over 30,000 listings, and I do not care to wait 5 minutes for them to finish. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and hit the run now. And boom. In 3 seconds, not even, that's 3/10 of a second, we have downloaded the 10 listings that we wanted to download. Now we go back over here and we can run the images. And just like that, those images are downloaded. Now we should be able to go to our demo. Okay, and so there you have them. All the listing photos are showing up now. All the ones that actually have downloaded for them. And so the next step would be to come back over here, add some more data, save it again, run it again, and keep testing your cron job to make sure that you've got, you know, no errors, make sure everything's working fine, and just keep running a 10 limit, or, you know, maybe a 100 limit at most. And then the very last thing that you're going to do is this. You're going to go ahead and you're going to select this PHP to PHP. You're going to copy and paste this into your cron setting of cPanel or Plesk or whatever system you're using, or straight into Linux. You can, if you're going to go right into Linux via shell command, you're going to just go take the whole thing and use that. But that is the only cron job that you need to run, is PHP to PHP, no spaces afterwards, before or after. And if you're downloading photos, then you're going to want to run that. Now, what I do is when I'm downloading photos, I go ahead and this will, if you click on Run Now, without any kind of a limit in here, it will only download 100 listings worth of photos in each batch per property class, and then it will stop. So if you had 4 or 5 property classes, it might take, depending on the number of listing images and the size of images you're downloading, it could take anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour to get all those listings down, you know, 400 or 500 listings down worth of photos. And so whatever that cron time timestamp is when you're all finished, as you can see here, when this is all finished, you're going to want to set your cron job to run approximately an extra 10 to 15 minutes longer than what it took when you manually run it. So if it took an hour, you're going to make it run your cron job every hour and 10 minutes or every hour and 15 minutes to be safe, and until all of the images have been downloaded. And in some cases it can take hours. In some cases it will take days, or actually almost 2 weeks in some of them. I've actually done Canadian Real Estate Association and a couple others where it's actually taken up to 2 weeks to get all the images downloaded. That's why we hotlink. All right, so none of the other crons are to be used. These are for if you had to map out the agent and office separately in the property classes, but you will not have to do that. And I think the last thing I did not cover, I need to go ahead and make sure I do cover, is concatenating. What do you do when you have a lot of fields that need to be joined together because they don't have a field called list agent? So we're going to go down here to listing agent. So I don't see a listing agent full name scenario. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to start with listing agent name. And the way we do this is listing agent name doesn't exist already in the database. We haven't mapped it yet. So we're going to go ahead and create it first. So we're going to go down here and we're going to go to, we're going to change listing agent first name. We're just going to call it, we're just going to change it to list agent name. Okay, so that's what we're going to do is we're going to create this field that does not exist yet. I need to make sure I got one T there. All right. And no spaces or anything are necessary. This is a hidden value, never to be shown. We're actually using agents only for if we're going to feature listings by an agent name. All right, so what we're going to do is hit create. And now that we have the list agent name here, we're going to go ahead and open it again on this first name. And we're going to go down to option 4 this time. So in option 4, we're going to go ahead and select listing agent middle name. So we got to go down to the LA listing agent middle initial. Okay, we're going to add that. And we're going to go ahead and do listing last name and add that. And we're going to go ahead and concatenate that. And where did that go? There we go. So now we have a new field called listing agent name. And that's what you do if you needed to create an address. Same scenario. If you're dealing with a RETS provider that did not give you a full street address, it's the same exact process. You basically would go, and I'll show you while I got this open, because these are like the two main things that people need to have information for, because a lot of these do not provide address fields. And whenever we do an address, we start off with a street number always, and it would be street number, and you would just pop this open, drop down to the option 4 here, click on address, because that is a field that we've already preloaded into the database for you. And then you're just going to go ahead and we start off with street number, and then the next thing would be street prefix direction, if there was such a thing in this one, but for whatever reason this one does not have that. So we're going to use street name, add field, and this is just a rinse and repeat. You would have to do this in each property class. Okay, so that would be everything required to actually build an address from the RETS unique individual fields. Now I would do that just like that, and then what I would do over here is I would never map any of these fields out. I would actually, every one of the street address stuff, I would actually just click to hide those. So that would get hidden, street name would get hidden, street suffix, street, and I think that should do it. So basically that I would hide all the rest of them because they're trash at that point, and I would just use that. All right, well anyway, the rest is rinse and repeat, trial and error. Once you've got all of your data into your RETS database here, and you keep getting your successful saves and you keep getting a successful run at the end, then the next step is to go ahead and sort your fields into the zones and build your search form, and those are in the other videos. We really appreciate your watching this video, and if you have any more questions, feel free to check out our support forums or open a support ticket if you need one-on-one support.